All right, everyone, welcome back into another NBA props video. Gonna be touching on the top prop bets that we have today on both PrizePicks and Underdog. Say hi to my cat right there who wanted to make a guest appearance, but let's go ahead and get into it. So I do want to start with calling out these bets that I had suggested yesterday on the preview video. I had some extra time. You can gain some pretty big edges, and this potentially is one that we gained on Underdog. I just want to recap on these ones specifically. So yeah, as you guys will see here, just real quickly, getting a pretty big edge there. We see Brook Lopez has been bumped a full point. Jalen Green has been bumped a full point there as well. We can see Nick Claxton has been bumped a half a rebound to where it probably should be. We're going to see Mikal Bridges at 5 rebounds has been bumped to probably where it should be. And then Keldon Johnson as well has been bumped to where it should be. So we were able to gain some pretty big edges. Hopefully that made some good results there on Underdog. But with that, I had already done a preview video, so I just want to kind of recap the injury situations that we currently have. Okay, so for Detroit, we know that Jalen Duren is out. Bagley is probably going to sit as well because James Wiseman is currently projected as the starter. That should mean some pretty good things for Miles Turner in terms of scoring. We do know that Evan Mobley is going to be out as well. That's going to help out Jared Allen. Decent matchup going against Orlando. We did get news that Wendell Carter is going to be out as well, but Jonathan Isaac's going to be back there, so we'll see what that means. But we do know Jalen Suggs currently still a game time decision. Markelle Fultz out, but with Jalen Suggs kind of projected to play right now, I don't think we're going to be up on any Cole Anthony props. Looking at Washington, if Daniel Gafford sits, they're going to be pretty darn short bigs wise, and then Embiid should be able to feast. I do have a sneaky suspicion that Embiid could potentially sit tonight given the matchup with Washington. That's a game that Philly's going to be projected to win regardless. Tyus Jones is someone that with the amount of injuries to the guards, he should be locked into a slightly additional run tonight. Looking at Miami, they are still pretty banged up. Bam and Tyler Hero are going to be out there. Highsmith is going to be out as well. We're still not seeing Hawkes get into the starting lineup, which for me is going to be annoying. Caleb Martin projected to start at power forward. If Kyle Lowry sits, we're going to see a lot of Josh Richardson, and the usage to Jimmy Butler is going to go up as well. Looking at Charlotte, Mark Williams currently a game time decision. If he sits and a Nick Smith sits as well, that's going to open up a lot of playing time. I would imagine that PJ Washington would get a little bit additional run with Mark Williams being out. Continuing on for Atlanta, DeAndre Hunter, if he were to sit, that would help out Deke Bay a little bit better in terms of production, in terms of likelihood to have a good game. Continuing on, we did get news that Mitchell Robinson is going to be out. That's going to mean Isaiah Hartenstein is going to get a lot of playing time. I don't know if there's a big takeaway there. Mitchell Robinson and Hartenstein have been kind of splitting minutes as is. Looking at Minnesota, if Ant-Man were to sit, we would know that would instantly give a boost to Rudy Gobert and Karl Anthony Towns. Looking at the Pelicans, Larry Nance is still out. That's going to mean Jay Val should be in for more minutes. I don't know if I want to touch him tonight though, given the matchup with Minnesota. Looking at Houston, not too many concerns there. Looking at Chicago, Patrick Williams game time decision. Zach LaVine out. Again, with Zach LaVine out, maybe Kobe White continues his good play. Walker Kessler is out for Utah, as is Lauri Markkanen. We also have John Collins as a game time decision. That's opening up a lot of potential minutes and usage. All in all, Utah probably going to get blown out against the Thunder. Looking at Dallas, we did get news that Grant Williams is going to be out, as well as Kyrie Irving, as well as Josh Green. Derek Jones and Derek Lively probably will get a little bit additional run. We are going to see that Memphis, their bigs are probably going to get a good matchup going against Derek Lively. All in all, props that we were getting for Luka with Kyrie out were definitely elevated a little bit too much. Continuing on, not too much for Brooklyn, more of the same there. For Portland, we're not going to get any props here just simply due to the amount of injuries. So guys, I did want to start out with the injury report, simply because obviously there are a lot of injuries. This is a huge slate. That stuff is going to matter. Now I'm going to show you guys which prop bets are currently the best prop bets. If there's an edge there for on-off court data or any increase in production or decrease in production given the potential injury news that we have, I will be touching on that. But now let's go and get into the best prop bets. I'm going to start with PrizePicks and then get into. So let's go ahead and start with the top one, and that's going to be Clint Capella. This one has a 50% or 57% edge, which to me is pretty darn high. And I don't know if I exactly agree with that, simply because of the matchup with Nikola Jokic. Like, sure, going against Jokic, you're going to need to get your big some minutes. If Clint Capella gives us 30 minutes, we should be good to go. We see that against Philly, who he did that against. We see that against Milwaukee, who he did that against. He had a good game against Cleveland in limited minutes. And so there are two big factors into this. One, will he stay out of foul trouble for long enough to get a full allotment of minutes, which for him would be around 30 minutes? And two, will the game stay close enough for long enough? All in all, I guess I can see why the data likes this one. And we can see lately has been, pretty hit or miss, but very consistent in terms of near the game, the over. So all in all, I guess I can get behind that one. Another one that was popping up, we actually have two for the Atlanta Hawks. DeAndre Hunter for under fantasy score is one that's popping up. And he too has been someone that has been kind of a consistent producer. Most of the time though, he has been under this number. All in all, I think I can get behind that one as well. Don't love the fact that the average sportsbook line would be kind of giving us a 24.3 for a projection, and then the projection data would be saying about 24.2. So don't exactly love that, but all in all, decent. The next one that we are going to see is Isaiah Hartenstein for under 7.5 points. We can see that Underdog has the line set at 6.5. When we look at Isaiah Hartenstein, we can see he is going to get an increase in minutes simply because Mitchell Robinson is going to be out. He is projected to get 25 minutes in this game. And so, yeah, all in all, probably going to be close to 7.5 points. To me, it does make sense why PrizePicks has bumped it up to 7.5, even though the sportsbook data isn't exactly giving it that line. And just looking at his per 36 production with Mitchell Robinson off the court, again, he's projected to get 25 or so minutes. So I don't know if that's going to necessarily be who benefits the most, but we do know that he will get an increase in minute. And so using this per 36 production, again, not going to get 36 minutes. It's the best thing that we have though. Averages only 11 points per 36, 11.4 rebounds, does average a block and a steal per 36, averages about 36 fantasy points per 30. So for Hartenstein, we can see a similar game against Boston, did get 29 minutes in that game. And that I think would be the hope, is that 28 minutes against Miami, that would be the hope, is that he does give us closer to 30 minutes, but we can see the projection data around 25 minutes. Don't love that. And so, you know, now in retrospect, I might actually think that the under on PrizePicks is pretty a good one. And that just might be simply rooted in the fact that Julius Randle is going to be locked into a ton of minutes and will probably get a slight increase in usage. He's probably going to be the player that benefits the most, is Julius Randle. Moving on into the next one, we got Kevin Huerter for over 23 for a fantasy score. And guys, kind of what I like about the data that's being pulled in today is that we are seeing these lines for the average sportsbook line. They're very similar to the lines that we are getting for the PrizePicks projection for fantasy score. That tells me that there's a consistency in the data that's being pulled in by both PrizePicks to make that prop line, and then also the average sportsbook line. And so all in all, the percentages that we're getting for these for edges and whatnot, it is a good indication that that should be a good line. Now, what was it, like 8 days ago, 10 days ago? It might be more than that, honestly, but not too long ago, over the past month, Kevin Huerter, I think it was like 2 weeks ago now I think about it, he really hurt us. He chalked us. It might have been that game against the Clippers. I'm pretty sure it was, where, no, I think it was the game against the Pels. Whatever. We had seemingly locked in a 6-for-6 slip. Kevin Huerter was 77% of the way there for his fantasy score prop. And what happens? Yeah, it was against the Pels. He doesn't score a single basket in the second half to miss out on his over fantasy score by 2. Those are some of the weird kind of bad beats that have occurred over the past like 2 weeks, where, you know, you take a decent day and you turn in a very likely prop to hit at halftime, and that would make it a great. So I still left a little sour taste in my mouth there with that one. And we look at Kevin Huerter, big concern is his minute. We can't accurately project him to get minutes right now with the Kings being as healthy as they are. Now, sure, if Malik Monk were to sit, I think that would pretty much lock in the minutes for Huerter. But with Keegan Murray back and kind of with them all healthy, I do worry about those minutes being there for him. Now, in that game, he did get into early foul trouble, and that's the thing with the Kings. It's like, you get into early foul trouble, not hitting your shot, you're not going to get those minutes. Good thing is, if you are hitting your shots, you are going to get those minutes. So all in all, you know, I can agree with the data here. I think that's going to be a good one. Don't hurt us twice. I mentioned this on the last video that Nick Claxton for over points and rebounds could be a good one. I end up going with the rebounds prop. We can see this one has a pretty big edge there. I don't like the fact that the projection data is only giving him 19.9 for the projection, but all in all, at 20.5, this one is seemingly going to be a little bit too low. In that same matchup, he is someone that I wish he was getting more minutes, don't get me wrong, but even in limited minutes, we can see 13 points, 15 rebounds. I like that. I mentioned this on the last video. I'd rather go with rebounds at the time. And now, you know, you could still go with that. We're seeing DeJounte Murray. Again, I like the fact that the data points are pretty much giving us around the same number. Average sportsbook line would have it closer to 36 for a fantasy score, and they would be favoring the over at about 54% given that line. And so for DeJounte Murray, the nice thing about him is that in games that have stayed close, he has been getting around 36 minutes. Let's take a peek at the game over and under. Yeah, it is a very high scoring game as well, so that should mean good things for his potential at the over. It's a close game, so that is all very good things, and I think that's part of the reason as to why Clint Capella fantasy score is being favored for the over. There should be some correlation there. Again, with Clint Capella, you're just hoping that he doesn't get in foul trouble. From there, we have some interesting ones as well. Again, guys, like data wise, the reason why we have fantasy score in there is because that is where we get the best projected edge each and every single day. Now, whether that's holds up each day, we'll see. They do typically hit at their expected rates. Cameron Johnson right now, 26.5 is his PrizePicks line for fantasy score. And right now for that Kings game, I think we are seeing maybe a potential for a slight game stacking opportunity given the prop bets that we are getting. So Cameron Johnson, the Brooklyn Nets are an interesting team because their production is kind of rooted in their minutes, and they are kind of deep right now. Like Cameron Johnson only getting about 30 or so minutes. And so with that, it does make sense why, if he does see a slight reduction in his minutes, why this under could be one that hit. From there, a prop that I find extremely interesting that's being favored for the under is Isaiah Stewart for under 25 for a fantasy score. Again, I like the fact that the average sportsbook line is saying 24.9 on average, all while favoring the under there. That is good things to see. The issue that I sort of have here is the incredible matchup. And we also know that Jalen Duren's going to be on this game. And so the projected minutes at like 29, which is a little bit lower than his season norm, I wonder if that's going to still hold up. Now, James Wiseman is currently projected to start, and that's also a cause for concern because to me that indicates that the two bigs that they have between Bagley and Duren, with them both being out, that's going to mean Wiseman, and Wiseman is someone that can really get into foul trouble even in limited minutes. I mean, look at all these games, 16 minutes, 2 fouls, 8 minutes, 2 fouls. Like, you can't really trust him because he does get into foul trouble. And so if he is getting into foul trouble, that should mean that Isaiah Stewart would actually be playing a lot of center minutes in this pretty good matchup against the Pacers. Now, you look at his per 36 production with Duren off the court, only averages 29 fantasy points per 36. And so if you adjust that down for only around 30 minutes, yeah, I would say that the under probably would hit. Now, another thing that we need to call attention to is that Bogdanovich is going to be back in this game. And so with him back and on the court, we have seen Isaiah Stewart's fantasy score per 36 actually fall to 23 fantasy points per 36. So again, I could see why the data is favoring the under here. And so this is one where I can kind of get behind it, even though I don't like it, because Stewart was someone that I had high hopes for at the beginning of the season. Let's continue on. We got Daniel Gafford seemingly always for over fantasy score. It makes sense. You know, it's tough to project a blowout. Vegas typically isn't doing that. He's projected to get 26 minutes. At this point, it's kind of like one of those things where if you always bet him, you're just always betting him. If you don't bet him, you don't bet him. It's kind of as simple as that. Literally, I think over the last 5 games, he's been popping up for the over fantasy score. And literally 3 out of the past 5 games has gone the over. You would certainly take those odds on a night in and night out basis. Going against Philly, it is interesting. I mentioned that Embiid could sit, but apparently if Embiid plays, it doesn't really matter because he had 40 fantasy points in that game as well. Continuing on, we got a few more fantasy score props to touch on. Michael Porter Jr., I actually don't feel the need to touch on that one. That is definitely hit or miss. Now, with everyone active for the Denver Nuggets, I guess I will touch on it. For everyone active with the Denver Nuggets, I do think that there's a good chance that the under probably does hit for him for that game. Now, with Denver, we are seeing we have a few decent ones. So you could run out a little bit of a game stack where like Hunter under fantasy score, we got Capella over fantasy score, DeJounte Murray over fantasy score, and then MPJ. So MPJ, certainly interesting, like 40 minutes in the last game against Houston, 34, 33, 37. That was something that was not happening at the beginning of the season. He was only getting around 30 minutes. And so with Jamal Murray probable to play, I do think that that could hurt some of Michael Porter Jr.'s minutes and really his usage. And then someone like Aaron Gordon being back, probably playing around 30 minutes as well. I do think that there is some slight worry that Michael Porter Jr. could see his minutes get reduced. And we know with him, he is very much points based in terms of his production. Don't love the fact that it's an increase in pace for them, but all in all, I can see why the data does like the under there. From there, I do find these two to be extremely interesting. So let's talk about Jimmy Butler, because this line is a little bit too low, but the worry with Jimmy Butler is the simple fact that he can have random like games where he's taking a back seat and then everyone else really goes off. We saw that, I think, 2 slates ago for the Heat, where Butler was popping up as a really good prop bet to bet, I think it was points and assists or something like that. Didn't get there, and literally everyone else for the Heat pretty much that you would have been on had a good game. But let's take a peek at this because this is fascinating. So not only does he get a phenomenal matchup going against the Charlotte Hornets, like we love that. And if you look at it, the matchup with Cleveland is not exactly a matchup you would have loved, and the matchup with Toronto, maybe not the best matchup as well, but this matchup with Charlotte is one that he should be able to crush. And so we look at the data with Bam, Highsmith, and then Tyler Hero off the court. Jimmy Butler has a 30% usage rate, averages 44 fantasy points per 36. So already we can see that the over would slightly be favorited there. Doesn't average that many turnovers, doesn't average a block or steal though, so that doesn't really matter then. What we'd really be wanting is him to get about 6.4 assists per 36, which is what he gets, which if we look at the data is a little bit lower than what's expected. Now, what I didn't like is that this morning, the under 5.5 assists was being heavily favored. Okay, that was a pretty good EV bet. I think the data has since adjusted this morning. He does average 5.6 rebounds per 36. Where he gets most of his production fantasy score wise with those two players off the court is actually his points, where he averages 26.2 points. So all in all, maybe not the biggest edge, but I do like the fact that this is very much matchup based. And so if we look at it, he is projected to get 35 minutes in this game. And I'm actually curious to take a peek at the game. 220. Projected to stay close, so that should all mean some predictability in that prop for Jimmy Butler. So I'm perfectly fine betting the over there. And then Tobias Harris, I do just want to mention that sure, if Embiid's active, I could see the under hitting there. If Embiid is not active, like I have a sneaky suspicion for, he'd probably crush that. So the next ones that we have, Keontae George for over 4.5 assists. I'm definitely okay with that. Keontae George on the season is averaging 5.1 assists already. If the game stays close, which is a big ask going against OKC, but if it were to stay close, or if the game stays close enough for long enough where the minutes aren't really being affected and he gets around 32 minutes, then he should be able to get those assists. And I think that's a direct correlation. You're really just betting on this game not blowing out too fast. All in all, though, he is someone that we can bank on, I think, consistently getting those minutes. Aaron Gordon, that's okay. I don't love that one too much. De'Aaron Fox, we can see Underdog has bumped that up to 7. But let's kind of show you guys real quickly some Underdog prop bets, and then I'll be giving you guys a bet slip. It is difficult, guys, to give a bet slip with that many good prop bets. Obviously, it's a 13-game slate. Really, crazy. Really, if we were attacking the slate directly, you'd kind of just be mixing and matching all those really good prop bets that we have. But looking at it, guys, these ones here, they're basically being valued as a push. Anytime you have a small average sportsbook line like this, where the over is being heavily favored, Underdog or PrizePicks is going to bump it up. Okay, so sure, the under is being favored here. That's because of the adjustment for the line at 2. But all in all, those are being favored as pushes. And I kind of hate that they are giving us those lines. Here's one that does pop up. Aaron Gordon for under 6.5 rebounds. That's going to be a good EV bet for us. And then we have Keontae George again for over 4.5 assists. That's really the two best prop bets that we are getting, where we're not seeing any that are being valued as pushes. Maybe Royce O'Neal, I guess, for under 7.5 points. That's a good one as well. So we have a decent 3-slip bet that we can run out for Underdog, specifically for NBA. All right, so getting to the bet of the day for Underdog. Now, obviously, I can't guarantee that these are going to be there by the time the video is uploaded. These are good EV bets. I was able to jump on these two, and that's why I like to kind of default to the fantasy score props that we get for NBA on the daily, because they're not really adjusting the lines for how much they should be, and those are typically ones that you guys can benefit from in the long term each and every. And for what it's worth, for this Underdog slip, if you guys wanted to put in like Tyreek Hill for under 7.5 receptions, that was one that was popping up for the NFL video early on today. I don't love it, but that the data did. So all in all, that's not a terrible one. All right, so my bet of the day for PrizePicks is actually going to be more of a game stack. I just like the fact that these should correlate a decent amount. One that popped up as I was making this one was actually Bay for over fantasy score. That would actually correlate pretty well with DeAndre Hunter getting less than fantasy score. The biggest obvious concern is Clint Capella. We need him to get 30 minutes in this game. We need him not to get into foul trouble for that one to hit the over. Now, it is a high scoring game. Hopefully that happens. Obviously, the matchup with Jokic is not something that you typically want to chase, but the data really likes this one. And then DeJounte Murray, feel pretty good about that one. Like if this game total does hit the way it's supposed, he should be able to get that over. And then Michael Porter Jr., again, another one that I personally don't love too much. The data does love the under. I would say probably Aaron Gordon over would also correlate if you want to give a 6-slip bet out there. All in all, not bad. Other ones that we saw that were pretty good, I like Jimmy Butler for over fantasy score. Isaiah Stewart for less than fantasy score was also one that was popping up. Cameron Johnson less than fantasy score was another one that was popping up. Keontae George for over 4.5 assists, another one that was a decent one. Obviously, this is NBA to be updating throughout the day. And my goodness, guys, if there's another really good day for Underdog and not a good day for PrizePicks, I'm gonna be super tilted, because that is what happened yesterday. But again, you kind of gotta go where the edges are. Thankfully today, since right now the edge is on Price, we'll see if that holds. That's gonna be all for today's video, guys. Thank you for watching. Let's have a good slate. Make sure to give a like and subscribe to the channel. If you guys want access to the 9to5 Sports PrizePicks and Underdog cheat sheet, head on over to 9to5sports.com. That's gonna be available for just $10 a month, as well as all the other fantasy sports tools. Thanks for watching. Let's have a good slate. And as always, let's keep cashing.